10 Most Famous Haunted Cemeteries in the United States. 1. St. Louis Cemetery, New Orleans, Louisiana. The state of Louisiana is famous not only as the birthplace of the Queen of Talk, Ellen Lee DeGeneres, but also known for being the location of the eerie city of New Orleans. Upon arriving in New Orleans, the first thing that visitors may hear about is the stories of terrifying vampires, medieval witches with supernatural powers, and more. Many believe that the city's cemeteries are the dwelling places of these vampires. One of the most famous cemeteries in this regard is St. Louis Cemetery. It is the oldest cemetery, and due to the high water table, the graves are built above the ground. Therefore, when wandering through these graveyards, tourists may feel like they have entered a deserted and eerie town. The locals are also intrigued by the tales of blood-sucking bats. So when visiting this place, you will be advised by many to explore the cemeteries when there are more people around. 2. Old Cemetery in York, Maine. The Old Cemetery in York, Maine is said to be a sanctuary for dozens of souls who were victims of a notorious massacre in 1962, as well as the burial place of Mary Nassen. Mary was known as the White Witch of York because she sold medicinal herbs and was an expert in exorcism. Some local residents claim to have seen the apparition of Mary wandering around the haunted graveyard. The crows perched on the tree branches near the old cemetery are also believed to be the spirits of Mary's family members. 3. Rehoboth Village Cemetery, Massachusetts. This cemetery was established in the 17th century and is the abode of Ephraim, the most mischievous ghost in Massachusetts. Legend has it that Ephraim had deep, eerie eyes. This ghost often taunts people and has a strong dislike for women. A local resident mentioned that during a visit to the cemetery she suddenly heard a scream, "Catherine!" Terrified, the woman ran away. When she turned back, she saw the ghost fighting another female spirit. Afterwards, both of them vanished. 4. Pine Grove Cemetery, Messina, New York. Dragan Obretinov is the name of a Bulgarian immigrant who settled in the town of New York. In 1949, he was mistakenly shot and killed by a hunter who mistook him for a deer, and he was buried in the local Pine Grove Cemetery. His grave subsequently became an ideal hunting ground for local ghost hunters. 5. Union Cemetery, Easton, Connecticut. This is the home of the famous White Lady ghost. According to local legends, the White Lady died while giving birth, but there are also rumors of her being murdered. The White Lady often appears in a white dress on the road near the cemetery. She is also associated with the renowned paranormal investigators Lorraine Warren and Ed Warren. This intriguing ghost story has been adapted into a Hollywood movie, attracting a significant number of fans to theaters. 6. Stepp Cemetery, Benton, Indiana. Although it is a small and dilapidated cemetery, Stepp is famous in Indiana for its dark and eerie stories. One of the most bizarre tales that locals often recount is the legend of the woman in black. According to the legend, a young mother was devastated by the loss of her infant child. In her distress, she went to the cemetery and dug up the child's remains. Unable to bear the pain, the mother took her own life. Those who visit the cemetery sometimes still see a woman dressed in black crying next to her daughter's grave, not far from a decaying tree in the cemetery. 7. Pine Hill Cemetery, New York. Legend has it that this cemetery holds the burial site of a man named Abel Blood in 1867. In his lifetime, he secretly practiced dark magic and committed atrocities against his own family. Abel's terrifying ghost haunts the cemetery, leading to its closure at night. During Halloween, local authorities tightly regulate the cemetery to prevent any mishaps. 8. Guttleberg Cemetery, Wales, New York. Years ago, Wales had a doctor named Albert Speaker who performed illegal abortions in his own house, which faced the Guttleberg Cemetery. Many women died during these procedures and were discarded by Albert into a nearby pond by the cemetery. Albert later became a suspect in a murder case and hung himself from a tree in the cemetery. After his death, people often witnessed the apparition of Albert's restless spirit and the deceased women wandering around the cemetery wearing white blouses. Additionally, many have reported seeing the ghosts of the aborted fetuses crying and crawling around the cemetery. 9. Howard Street Cemetery, Salem, Massachusetts. Howard Street Cemetery is the resting place of a man named Giles Corey, who suffered a gruesome death. Locals believe that whenever a tragedy occurs in the city, they catch sight of Giles's silhouette appearing around the cemetery as a warning sign. Adjacent to the cemetery is the Old Salem Jail, one of the oldest prisons in the United States, which closed in 1991. People visiting the graveyard sometimes still observe flickering lights in the prison's windows, hear singing and murmuring voices, despite it being closed for many years. 10. South Street Cemetery, Massachusetts. Ghost hunters from all over the United States take a keen interest in Ruth Blai's grave at South Street Cemetery. She was a teacher who became pregnant under mysterious circumstances. Fearing punishment, she concealed her pregnancy from everyone, gave birth prematurely, and the baby died. Ruth buried her child beneath the classroom floor. One student witnessed this and informed their parents. Ruth was immediately arrested and hanged for the crime of murder. The sympathetic townsfolk buried Ruth and her child in the cemetery, and sometimes the forlorn spirits of these unfortunate individuals are still seen in the darkening shadows.